Welcome to another Flip video lesson. This video is for lesson 19.3, and this is the final part in looking at the differences between the geography and climate of the northern and southern regions of our country during the 1800s. Today we'll focus on what the southern states look like in terms of their geography and their climate. Don't forget to be filling out your outline or taking notes as you're watching, because you'll need this information for when you do the homework questions and also for the final assignment. So don't be afraid to pause the video if you need to and rewind if you have to. And also, if you have questions, please email them to me while you're watching the video. Let's begin, shall we? First off, let's talk about the climate of the South. The southern climate had mild winters, very unlike the winters we saw when we learned about the northern states. Summers, on the other hand, were very hot, and again, they were very humid. Very subtropical conditions, actually, meaning long summers. Let's take a look at this fun little comic. Kind of explains what winters were like for the southern states. I also want to show you a graph that further demonstrates what the weather was like in the southern states. This graph right here shows the average temperature between December and February from 1895 to 1900s. The average temperature looks to be around about 46, 45 degrees for the winter months, which in Washington State, ours is actually kind of like that. Might be a little cooler, more like maybe the high 30s, but that's really not that bad. Compare that to, though, the northern states, if you remember. If we take a look now at the precipitation, we'll see that the average precipitation was probably around maybe 9 inches. There was a huge range between 8 to 12 inches during the winter months. So again, it's not like you're not getting any precipitation. You are, but it's not snow. Again, very different from the northern states. Let's take a look now at what the summer would have been like in these southern states. We're still looking at the same time, from 1895 to 1900. And the average temperature is about 77.7 degrees, so almost 80 degrees. And if you take a look, from 1895 to 1900, the temperature raises, it goes higher. And this chart actually gives you a better glance. So summer temperatures were almost reaching 80 degrees. If we take a look now at the precipitation, during those same months, we see that they did get a lot of rain, actually. Average amount of rain they got was about 15 inches a month. They definitely had a huge spike of 20. So as you can see, perfect temperature and amount of rain for growing crops, which is what we talked a little bit about. Let's talk about the geography of these southern areas. Now, the southern states had very fertile soil, great for large-scale farming. Large scale meaning huge farms, big enough to where you can plant your crops, and that's your main job, because you can grow enough crops. Here's a look at the different types of soil that could be found in some of the southern states. This is from Alabama. This one is from South Carolina. The South Carolina soil, I was reading more on it, said that this was great soil for cotton. Huh. And do you remember what the main crop from the southern states was? If you remember back to our northern state video and the soil sample I showed, ton of rocks. No rocks here. This soil would be very good for growing crops. There was also swamps and marshes in the southern states, really good for rice and sugar cane, though again, it wasn't one of their main crops, but it could be grown there. And here's a picture of a nice, wonderful looking bayou, or very swamp, as some people may call it as well. Finally, the geography in the southern states had wide rivers. These wide rivers were also very slow moving. We have a picture here of the Mississippi River, and you can just see the size of the river and that it was able to accommodate such huge ships. This river here is the Alabama River. Again, not quite as big as the Mississippi, but it's wide. And you can tell it's slower moving. So I just want to recap real quick all that we've talked about in 19.2 and 19.3. The climate for the northern states cold, snowy winters, followed by kind of warmish and short summers. In the south, you have mild winters with some rain, followed by longer, warm summers. The geography for the north, we had rocky soil, more narrow, fast rivers, plus they had the Appalachian Mountains. For the southern states, we had fertile soil, wide, slower rivers, and they had some swamps. Not to mention that southern states definitely had a lot flatter land. And that had a huge impact on the rivers that they had. If you have a state that's mainly made up of mountains, then your river is going to be a lot more narrow and a lot faster, not conducive for traveling on boats. Whereas if you come from a land that's mainly flat, that river is going to be slow and it's more likely going to be wide. Whereas if you have mountains, yeah, you got that huge incline for the river to go down. Try something here. I jotted down some notes that show the difference in the precipitation and the temperature in the southern states versus northern states during the years of, I think it was 1885 to 1900. I'm going to hold my sticky pad note up to it. If you can pause the video and see if you can see the differences, awesome. If you can't, don't worry about it. I don't know how well you guys can see that with my shaky hand, but as you can see, the temperatures are drastically different in the summer in the southern versus northern, about 10 degrees difference. And if you look at the winter, again, a drastic difference in the amount of precipitation and the temperature. More precipitation in the northern during the winter months, mainly because they have a lot of snow. Well, don't forget to check Edmodo for the homework questions. Thanks again totally for watching this video, and I'll see you in class.